So what are we debating though? Like that's my question.
Well, we can debate just about anything. I mean, we'll just pick something.
Because I was gonna say drug liberalization, but then I was like, wait, me and you agree on that.
Yeah.
We agree that drugs should be legal.
Okay.
So
actually,
if you want to talk about drug debate, I mean, I'm more than happy to talk about that.
Well, me and you agree with each other, so it'd be hard. I agree that it should be legalized.
My chat thing isn't working right. Okay, there we go. All right, now my chat's working.
Wait, what's your live stream? I wanna be on there.
It's just on it's on my Facebook right now.
Oh man, really? It's not on YouTube?
No, but it will be later.
Fuck, I don't have Facebook.
Okay, so anyway, so we want to debate on whether or not that drugs should be legal.
Well,
is that what we're debating?
We both agree on that, so it's going to be a little hard to do that.
Well, we're not going to debate on something we agree on.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said I don't know if we should do that. I don't know what else there is.
Well, there's a whole bunch of different debate. There's a whole bunch of different debates.
I could be, I really want to be like can I be the devil's advocate? Can I just say that I support gun control and then you debate me on that?
Did I get muted?
Can I be the devil's advocate?
No, because then it's going to be fake.
Side.
It's going to be a fake thing.
Well, yeah, but like they do that.
Like
people do that.
Okay, I mean, I guess so. I mean, you have like reporters; they tend to do that.
You're putting us on
I'll just make sure to be very anecdotal and then say like, "Oh, my son died back in Chicago."
Okay, yeah. So I don't think that's we have to pick something that we actually disagree with. So, okay.
I mean, abortion's probably a relatively easy topic to debate about.
Should alcoholism be legal?
What?
Should alcoholism be legal?
I mean, if they agree on drugs being legalized, what do you think they think about alcoholism?
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, just throw out some like hot takes and let's just.
I mean, if you really want something easy to debate about,
First Amendment, you don't
say some stuff and then I'll be like,
support
what the hell, man?
First Amendment, you don't support a central bank, do
you? Oh, that's interesting. Do I support a central bank? I would say no. I would say
boom, we got it. We got it. Because I support having.
I don't know anything about a central bank.
I don't
That's
know
why
that it has money is.
All right, yeah, that's good because then that means that you won't talk. All right, so now be quiet.
Well, I got.
Okay, so I believe.
I got a good one. I got a good one. This is a good one. This is a lot more entertaining.
No, we're doing a central bank. We're doing a bank.
No, but that's not as fun. It's not as fun.
The Jews run the banks.
The Jews run the banks. No, come on, stop. Now, what do you think? Should the government force vaccinations?
No.
Yes.
I think if the government were to do that, then it should be the kids' fault. The parents' fault.
Who said yes?
I'll go and say yeah.
Okay, well, on some things, yes.
Hold on. So who said yes though to that?
I did.
That was me.
I did.
Techno did.
Okay, can I just get one person at a time?
Techno did.
Okay, so do you want to debate with me then, Techno?
Central banks! Vaccinate! I do not like the vax debate. That is so gay.
I can say I don't know all that much about the whole, like, the anti-vax shit with, like, it causes autism and all that shit. Like, I know a lot of it's bullshit, and then there's also some, like, some history to it.
I don't disagree that the debate regarding whether or not that it causes autism is completely unfounded. My question is whether or not that a government can force that on people.
Yeah, well, let's say you're going to a public high school, like you should be required to get vaccinated to go to that school. Yeah.
So that's different from force.
It's kind of force. I mean, I'm not saying they should be
put in jail if they don't get
the
reason why it's not forced is because you can entirely voluntarily decide whether or not that you're going to take the child to the school. It's not. You don't have to take the child to the school by law.
Really? What if your choices are a $20,000 private school or the one high school in town?
Homeschooling.
There exists homeschooling. There exists people who actually unschool their kids. The point being is that there is no law that regulates you from not having to take your children to school. You don't have to do it by law.
Wait, really?
First Amendment, I just thought of something. First Amendment, I just thought of another debate that we could do. We could do a roads one.
We're already on it, man. We're already on a debate.
We're already debating. Calm down, Jay.
So,
man, hold me back.
I guess I think about it in terms of like that. Obviously, it's one thing when the school itself requires vaccinations, which I think is completely reasonable. The reason why I think it's reasonable and it's not forced is because you can voluntarily choose whether or not to be a member of that school. So it's the same thing that I would consider. It's not an instance of government force.
So in this hypothetical, because like I don't know how long this debate's gonna last, because like that's all I kind of agree with. Like in this hypothetical, like what would be the repercussions for like not getting vaccinated?
Well, obviously the repercussions of not being vaccinated is we allow we allow really, really dangerous viruses to exist.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah.
You know, and if we regulated it, basically you would end up with a higher quality of life. But I also would say that the end result is probably a lot more sinister than people would let on.
So I think it's like circumstantial though, because it's like I don't think people should be forced to get like a flu vaccination, but like if there's like some whatever the fuck that movie is where there's like that zombie outbreak shit. I know that was caused by a vaccine or some shit, but like you know, like I don't know if there's some like plague going around, like yeah, the government should fucking force people to get vaccinated. That seems pretty reasonable.
Okay, so you would say that we should force vaccines.
Yeah, it should be circumstantial. Yeah, they shouldn't force a flu vax, but like, you know.
Okay.
But what about freedom?
So here's, I guess this is the only issue that I have, because it's like, I understand that vaccines is an overall positive to the human race, and that, you know, of course, at that point, why should
what Big
the government
Pharma wants you to.
And then also, if you have a bunch
so
of
it's
people
like it comes down to like, why shouldn't the government force vaccine? And the benefit, of course, is that we eradicate epidemics that have come around again to the anti-vaccine craze, right? And you know, so that's a noble cause. But with all noble causes, bad things effectively happen with the best of intentions. And it's basically under my belief that I would suggest someone to give their child a vaccine, but while it is in the child's best interest to do so, but that's one thing, and then making the government perform it is a completely different thing.
I think children and vaccines, like that's something where like, yeah, I don't think the parent should have the, like I could see the government having the authority over the parent to say like, yeah, this kid needs to be vaccinated so he doesn't get fucking measles or whatever the fuck, you know. Like I can kind of understand like stepping in for like babies, like
It's interesting because I'm kind of torn on the debate there, because I think about because a child itself cannot consent. I don't consider a child can consent in any sense of the imagination, pretty much through anything. It requires the parent to make that decision, and if the parent's decision is to put the child at a minute level of risk, then it's up to their incentive to do so. It is not up to the government to make that decision for them.
Yeah, it might not be a minute level of risk, though. It might be like, yeah, like you're...
how big is the risk, honestly?
I mean, depends how you define minute. Like, I don't know. Like, it depends on the disease. It depends on, like, a lot of shit. So, like, you know, if there's, like, a 30% chance the kid could contract some shit, like, yeah, I don't think the parent should have the right to...
Well, because that you know, I have a genuine belief in the inalienable right of self. Like, basically, that you have the ownership of your own body. Unless, of course, you're a child, of which you don't have ownership of your... you do have ownership of your own body, but that you don't have a right to consent. And so that would basically give that person the ability, a right to effectively harm themselves or initiate risk in their life. So, like, one of the common debates that I've proposed is imagine for a moment that a politician was standing in front of your car door in the morning and he says, "Sir or ma'am, I can't let you into your car. The United States government has decided that the amount of people dying in car accidents is just too high. We also believe that it is bad for the environment, so we will no longer be allowing you to step into your car for your safety."
So here's another analogy, though. What if a baby is diagnosed with brain cancer and the parents want to faith heal him? Like, no, I think that, you know, like, I'm not saying you should put the fucking baby through, like, chemo or some shit, but no, if there's some treatment that could, like, potentially save that baby, like, no, the parent shouldn't have the authority to just be like, oh, no, we believe in faith healing. Like, no, fuck that.
There are instances of that happening where.
Oh, I know, and I'm saying fuck those parents. Like they have no right.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
just
I'm
let
not
their baby
saying
die.
that they. Yeah, I mean, I don't like that either. I don't like that either. But I think in order, it's basically the same rule that exists, where that a child can't consent to sex. It's the same exact thing because a child cannot never consent. It basically is reliant on the parent to make good decisions. Now, I'm not saying now. Of course, that would mean then there exist parents that just make bad decisions. They make bad decisions all the time with their kids, and most people aren't even aware of it. What I'm saying is, it's not up to the government to enforce that arbitrary rule on other people's lives.
No, but that has to do with like the term you brought up, like it being like a minute threat to the kid or not. Like, you know what I mean? If there's like an epidemic going around of a disease, like, and the parents choose not to vaccinate them because they think God will protect them or some shit, it's like, I don't know. Like
I guess if the risk gets so high to the point that it could be considered assault on your child.
Well, that's
because of course a parent can't go to a child and physically assault them because they have ownership. The child still has autonomy. They can't consent, but they do have autonomy.
Yeah.
So if they have autonomy, I'm just trying to rattle this through my head. Honestly, I'm not even debating with you at this point. It's just interesting.
No, I think we agree, though. Honestly.
Well, I mean, but then I don't believe that the government should force that. I don't think it should force that. I think it's up to people to make that decision. I think morality comes from people, not your government.
No, but that's where risk.
I think safety itself, like the idea of safety itself, doesn't exactly come from your government. I think it comes from
even if there's
from people.
You're saying even if there is, you're saying even if there is a high level of risk, though, the government shouldn't have to say. Like the parents should still have to say, even if they're making the wrong choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we don't agree.
Okay, I mean so it's just because I'm very black and white on it. I know it's probably not the right answer, and everybody who would who's normally very sane would come to the conclusion that yes, we should force it because you're harming the child. But then I also ask at what level do you believe that the government should have a say in it? But then I start to think that is it really something that should be said forth by the government, or can this be actually taken care of within your own community? It is not required.
You're saying you see it black and white, but then you're like introducing like the gray area. Like, you understand there's a gray area with it. Like, I think that's where
I guess I'm just talking about people's inalienable rights. That's that's the most black and white thing that and it comes down. I will bring it down all the way into where I allow somebody to self-harm, that I allow somebody to destroy their body with drugs. That I'm at that level where I believe that. You almost say that like the parents should have like the baby has autonomy, but it doesn't have like the right to consent, or it doesn't have the ability or the right to consent. So you're saying the parents can choose to consent or not on these things, but like you write off the idea of the government making that decision. Like, I just find that weird that like the parents can make that decision for the baby, but the government can't. Yeah, I don't think the government should have a right over people's lives like that. I don't believe so.
But the parents do? Like,
yes.
Only
for consent. That's the only thing.
That's just difficult, though, with something that like could potentially be killing the baby. Like, very likely, like, very, very, very possibly could be killing the baby. Like.
I mean, we could think about it like, obviously, we don't let kids ride in the back of trucks anymore, right?
So here's just like a weird,
there's a law against letting kids ride in the back of a truck.
Exactly.
Because it physically endangers the child.
I was going to bring up an analogy, like my mom when I was little, like she would always tell me and my sister when we were annoying her, like she'd be like, oh, go play on the fucking train tracks. Like she'd be like, go play on the train tracks. And she was obviously joking, like we knew that, but like what if a parent was like, oh yeah, you can go play on the train tracks? Like do the police not have the authority to be like, no, you kids aren't allowed to play on the train tracks? Like they shouldn't tell you.
Yeah.
You think that?
Wait, can you repeat that?
So, like, the police shouldn't have the authority to tell kids, like, no, you can't play on the train tracks. Like, the parent can be like, oh, yeah, you can go play on the train tracks if you want to.
So you're saying because the children are playing on train tracks,
In my belief, if I understand
So
right,
the parents said to the child, they can go play on train tracks. So then they go to play on train tracks. A policeman says, no, you can't play on train tracks.
Yeah, you're basically like in your ideology, you think that they shouldn't have that authority to tell the kids like, no, you can't play on the train tracks.
I mean, you can come up with a whole bunch of different debates, like the fact that it's someone's private property. You could say that, well, that the railroad company doesn't want to be held liable. It doesn't even necessarily have to fall into, well, the parents made a bad decision.
I just find it so weird that you give the parents this authority, you give like the railroad companies this authority, but like the idea of the government having that authority is just like, I don't know.
I guess because I find everything that the government does to be fundamentally a lot of what the government does to be wrong. There's a lot of things that I've seen that the government does that I think is a blatant destruction of people's rights.
I think they do plenty wrong, but I don't like agree with that perspective that like most of what they do or everything they do is wrong. Like I don't like I think they do a lot of good. Like there's a reason we have these governments. There's a reason why like liberalism is like the like you need government. Like limited government is good. Like for the sake of like
keep in mind I don't believe in no government. I mean that's not what I meant. I'm a minarchist. But I believe in a very small government. So much so that it's sufficiently that it is not powerful enough for any corporation to take it over. But I guess we're going outside of the realm. Well, the question is, do we allow governments to enforce, people's lives that way for their safety? Now, at first, that may seem like an okay thing, and it may seem all right. But now that I think about it, when you go further into it, you start to think, okay, well, if they can force you to do that, then what of other things? At what point do you consider that maybe that maybe the person or the parent should have the foresight or knowledge, albeit over against the government, which has a definite knowledge over other parents? You see what I'm saying? Like
I just think sometimes government, or most of the time government has a better they have a better understanding of what's good for people than the average person does. Like that's not always the case.
Oh, I disagree with that.
No, but that's the thing is like government, like its responsibility is to like
I think it entirely depends on the situation of each person. The problem that I have when it comes to an overarching law that exists, oftentimes it'll take care of most of the things, but that doesn't necessarily take care of instances of outliers or situations that don't necessarily like work, or it doesn't work within that context. And it's only like with the personal understanding of the child or the personal understanding of certain things that these things can effectively be taken care of. I don't think that the government has the answers for absolutely everybody. I think everybody has different needs in certain situations.
Yeah, well, I'm of the opinion like if a law is unjust, it's like it's
Well, there's a lot of unjust laws. You and I both probably agree with that there's no.
If it's good, sure, yeah. Well, if it's good for most people but not good for you, like you have, in my opinion, you have every right. You have every you can break that shit. You can break a law if it's just stupid. If it's like not. I mean, of course, there's repercussions for that. You need to watch out for that. But like.
So
I don't know, we're kind of.
We're moving out of the topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it comes down to like that individual parent. That if a parent makes a wrong decision, right, to taking care of their children, obviously, shopping at Whole Foods is probably better for your child than going to McDonald's. But the parents still take their children to McDonald's. So could, for example, you come up with a rule that the government enforce that you go to McDonald's as opposed to Whole Foods?
I'm of the mentality, like, I agree with the whole, like, limited government thing, but at the same time, it's like, there's certain protections they need to put in place. Like, if 30% of kids are contracting some illness and parents choose to not vaccinate their kids, like, that's fucked to me. That's like, no, like, you're putting your kid at a 30%.
Keep in mind, most parents do not unvaccinate their kids. They definitely vaccinate their kids.
Like, for example, if the parents were deciding to feed their kids fucking, like, hay, for example, Like, yeah, I think that constitutes like child abuse.
So
you know what I mean?
Yes, that's
One
a
thing if you take your
destruction.
kid-
That's a destruction on the body.
Yeah.
That is an
Yeah,
actual
exactly.
viable destruction on the body. A vaccination, I would say, is not a destruction of the body so much as I would call it neglect, at best. That's I'm sorry, at worst
But
is probably what I would call it. Neglect.
I think it kind of falls within the same sphere for me. Like, obviously, there's
you know
a difference
what?
between...
No. I wouldn't even call it neglect. I would just call it just parental ignorance, just ignorance of the person, because they don't believe that they are neglecting the child. They don't believe that. They believe that they're doing what's best for the child. It doesn't matter what
they believe. Yeah, they could believe it's best to feed their kids fucking hay. Like,
well, I mean, obviously, nobody's feeding their kids hay.
I know. It's a crazy analogy, but I don't know. It kind of falls within the same sphere for me. You know what I mean? I mean, it's obviously different. There's a difference between like just like neglecting to vaccinate your kid and like literally neglecting them. There's a big difference, of course, but I don't know. It falls within the same sphere for me of like.
Yeah.
I see it, but like both things as kind of neglectful, in my opinion.
What, feeding kids hay?
Yeah, they're both kind of neglectful. One is like directly neglecting them.
I like the McDonald's thing. I think the McDonald's thing illustrates what I'm saying here.
I'm sure there's a parent somewhere that's feeding their kid hay.
I mean, come on. That's obvious. I mean, come on. Okay, so that will basically cause that body to shut down pretty quickly if you're consuming hay. You know, you are actually physically harming the child in the event of doing that.
So the one is like a little more indirect, but it's still like, you know, still kind of the same result. He might be fucking bleeding out of his eyes if he doesn't get like, you know, like, that kid should probably be forced to be vaccinated.
I mean, I don't like to use the slippery slope debate, but I do think it applies in this instance.
Well, I understand that because it's a gray area.
Yeah, like, you do have the government, which they could force it on people, and they'd be very well justified in doing it. But the problem that I have is I don't believe that it's up to the government to maintain these levels of safety standards within your life. I think it's up to people to be able to assess risk within their life, regardless of what it is.
I don't like... Yeah, go ahead.
I think what he's trying to say is that some part of the government should control, like, if there's like a mass epidemic of like shit like that, then the government should step in, but say their government shouldn't step in if somebody's like got measles or something, like doesn't vaccinate their kid for measles, then it's like, well, okay, whatever. But if there's like a mass epidemic of people like dying from,
so in the event that there is a mass epidemic, that it would be like, okay, well, now you have to get one. You have to get one.
Yep.
So what is wrong with, for example, see, you can honestly like help this situation, the very situation, without revoking people's rights. You know, take for example offering free vaccinations, which they do. They do that during epidemics. That's definitely happening over where I live in the Pinellas County area, in Florida. There was a hepatitis A outbreak where over 3,000 people were contracted with hepatitis A out of nowhere. And basically a whole bunch of private companies just got together and they just were giving away the hepatitis A vaccine to anybody. Basically anybody who would walk into like a CVS or their health professional, they would get a hepatitis A shot. Now keep in mind, this, of course, means that they're not forcing it on other people to do it. Now, are they giving an incentive specifically in that it's free? But at the same time, they don't force people or their families to make bad decisions for their children or make bad decisions for themselves, which is completely okay. That's the problem. That's what I'm trying to say, is that I believe that a parent has a right to make a bad decision for their children, even though it's not necessarily the best thing. But in their mind, it happens to be the best thing. So it's not at the level of not feeding them hay or feeding them hay. I don't think it's the same thing.
I do think we can like reframe this discussion though, as far as like you know, the whole like life and liberty. Like, don't you feel like the parents could be infringing on the child's life and liberty by not having them vaccinated? Like, don't you think like you know, you might be infringing on the parents' liberty to be able to choose for their children by forcing the kid to get vaccinated, but that parent is like literally like doing something that could be like potentially detrimental to the kid's life, the kid's, you know, liberty to fucking, you know.
So I mean, so like again, really I like what because you're putting it into my framework, which I like. Well, but I understand at the same time, then you can come up with a proper justification of enforcing, for example, the child to never be able to go to McDonald's to eat something, instead has to go to Whole Foods. The point is, it's not up to the government to make that decision for the child. It is not up to the government to make that decision for the parent. It just isn't.
That's the whole slippery slope thing. Like I think there's kind of like we both agree on we both agree on like the limited intervention part. Like if something's just a little bit detrimental, if the kid like, okay, there's a 2% chance because he's eating McDonald's that he might not live till the age of 18 or whatever, like a 1% chance or whatever, you know, like I don't know, like I don't see a point in infringing at that point. You know, it's kind of like
what could make things better would actually be just full-on education. You know, of course, educating about vaccinations and how they work.
It'll help. It won't fix anything.
No. But the point that I'm saying is that you don't revoke people's autonomy in the process of your noble cause. Every single thing that has happened in history has always had like a noble cause in its right before they kill a shit ton of people to make it happen. It happens all the time throughout history. There's always a noble cause, people support it and they're into it, and then it fucking kills a bunch of people. It happens quite often throughout history. And so when I think about like vaccinations, I think basically the same exact path. Now you can basically start to gray area revoking of people's inalienable rights for the safety of people. And I don't think that's right. I think that's wrong.
Well, I think we have a difference of opinion with the whole like. I don't like that.
So take for example, you had parents that did put their kids in the back of a truck, right? But as you would know, most people didn't do that because they knew it was unsafe and they cared for their children. So it was up to the parents to make that decision. Now, of course, you do
fuck that, dude. You shouldn't be able to have your fucking like 8-year-old kid in the back of your truck, like no seatbelt. Like, yeah, he should be required to have a seatbelt. Yeah, like that's where we disagree. Like, keep in
mind that you did have car companies that were in fact making their cars safer. And then the government had decided that they were going to step in and enforce the regulation on every single car company. But that it didn't require a government to basically make that enforcement happen. It was going to happen one way or another. It didn't require
market factors that affect that, of course, yeah.
Well, I'm saying that people wanted to buy a car with seatbelts. They wanted it.
Yeah.
So it's like by market demand, people wanted that. Just as most people frown upon the idea of putting your child in the back of a van, but it is not up to a government to make that dictation. I don't think so. Well, I think it's up to a community to make that dictation. Take for example, like you go and you're driving around with your child who's 8 years old in the back of the car, in the back of the truck, and you stop in your home, and then your neighbors say, you put your kids in the back of your truck, you're going to kill your kids, and they get pissed off, you know. What I'm saying is that you have the community that is able to answer to situations like that. It doesn't require revoking people's rights by government edict.
Y'all want some gum?
Yeah,
I guess because it's not as it doesn't give it an immediate resolution that most people are looking for. They want to see that immediate resolution, but I hold people's inalienable rights to be above any government.
Well, you only believe in like negative rights, meaning like, you know, like the government shouldn't do anything to infringe on people's like right to property, right to liberty, all that stuff. And I believe in like positive and negative rights. So I believe like, you know, like there should be like positive decisions to like defend people's liberty. Like, you know, like I really do like. I understand what you're saying with like, yeah, like there might be some.
What do you mean?
What's up? Like the whole that's like the difference between like, you know, I know you're not like a classical liberal, but like that's kind of like the mentality of modern classical liberals is like they just believe in negative rights, meaning like, you know, the government shouldn't infringe on people's, like they shouldn't
Yeah, what do
take
you
away
mean by
their
positive
property.
rights? I've never heard of positive and
No.
negative rights.
So positive rights is like it's like the modern Democratic Party. It's basically like they believe in the same ideology of like liberalism with like limited government and all that, but then they also believe like there should be some measures taken to like there should be some measures, whether it's like regulation or whatever, taken to protect people's liberty, protect people's like that's how I feel about like the kids like the kids in the
Classical
back of the
liberals
truck.
don't think that, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't.
What are they
All right, guys, come on.
They're more
No,
pro.
wait.
They're
I'm
more
curious.
pro bigger business. I mean, they're more pro bigger government than libertarians and stuff.
No.
We believe that.
Oh, sure. Then libertarian, sure. Yeah.
All right, I want to get back into the debate because I think it's interesting. So, okay, so you're saying that the government should have create laws that would then protect people's freedoms.
Big pharma.
Yeah.
Basically,
Well, I'm sorry.
there should still be
I'm sorry.
government,
So
but
protect people's lives.
liberties, lives. Yeah.
lives. Yeah, I'm totally for that.
Okay, so then based off of that, if it should protect people's lives, we could have, for example, a law that forces people to not be able to get into their car because getting into a car is dangerous.
No, but that's the whole like limited government thing. Like there is a counterbalance to it. Like like you want to protect people's lives, but yeah, you don't want to like invade on their liberties.
So
Like, you only wanna make laws
That's
to
why I
protect
think we're in we have a very nice sweet spot here in the United States with vaccines. We at no point in time ever forced vaccines on anybody. We would never ever force that. But instead, we basically give people the option that it is there, that they can use it if they so please. And I consider
Wait,
it
how
as-
is this a good thing though? Like it's causing demonstrable harm to people.
what?
Can you
We
let him
weren't
finish?
part of the debate.
Yeah, you're not a part of it. But
I'm saying
Yeah,
it's up to. I'm saying it's,
I'm adding myself to the debate.
okay. I'm
Let's go,
saying it's
Owen,
up to
sorry.
it's up to people
no one
to
wants
make
you
that
to be added.
decision, not necessarily a government to.
Yeah, but like,
maintain
why should it
these
be?
safety
Why should it be up
standards.
to those people
Yeah.
if it's like causing harm to people that aren't them?
What?
Hey, I'm not debating you right now, but if you're gonna join the debate and add yourself, could you at least let him finish his points
Yeah,
before
he
you
was still
interject?
talking.
Thank you.
And that's why none of us want you to even be talking because you just interject randomly.
I mean,
If you're not in the debate, then don't say anything. You
I
have
don't
to
want
say
you to cut him off. I'm
Mute-
trying to
mute
listen to
yourself.
him.
Yeah, I'm
I'll
trying to
let
listen
you
to
guys.
this.
You guys can tag in because I'm like I think we get each other's perspectives.
Okay, I'll tag in. I think Danny DeVito is beautiful.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta
So,
agree
like,
with it. It's not
if
worth
we're
it. There's
getting
no
off
point in
topic
debating.
now.
I myself, an intellectual, would just like to hear these big brain thoughts. So,
Honest.
can you guys please?
Galaxy brain.
I need to get into Prime.
So I think right
So
now what we
if-
have in the United States is we have a very nice sweet spot where we don't effectively revoke anybody's rights by forcing them to get vaccinations. At no point in history have we ever done that. And then to top it off, there we do have the requirements of not only private institution but as well as public schooling institution, where they basically require that you do have to take these certain amount of immunity vaccines in order to attend the school. Now, because the attending of the school itself is just a choice, that means there is no instance of force that is ever being taken. There's not a single instance of force, which is, there's something beautiful about that because it maintains people's inalienable rights while at the same time has most people taking vaccines.
Yeah, but like, why though?
Well, I
why
think
should
that people have
why
a
should
right.
we?
People
Hold on. Why should we maintain these people's inalienable rights when their inalienable rights are literally killing?
Killing their children.
Well, it's the same reason why you have the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment kills people all the time, but that's not the point of the Second Amendment. It's supposed to be something way greater than that. The actual end result is that a lot more people effectively are saved, but you don't actually think about it.
But this is
Think
not
about
this is
that
not
portion.
analogous. This is not
Okay.
analogous
I
because
don't-
people are not saved by not having.
Why are you interrupting me? We're trying to talk.
Yeah, because I'm immediately talking to the point of like
Dude, you keep-
this
you
is
keep interrupting
non-analogous
him,
to,
though,
But
so
I'm not
to
even.
the
I'm not
point
even
I'm
finished
making.
with my.
Yeah, he was still talking. You
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, but like,
Yes.
like I know you're.
I'm telling him why he's wrong.
You have to
Let's just talk about something else.
So obviously, when you think about the Second Amendment, of course you're thinking, well, there's people who do get killed due to either accident or due to, a guy going crazy, or, and so people start to think, well, we don't really necessarily need the Second Amendment because, of course, it's hurting all these people. But the end result of what I've understood with the Second Amendment is that because a person has a right to their own body and a right to their own life, they therefore have a right to be able to defend it with whatever is required in order to defend their body. That's
okay. Question for you. Question for you. Who is being saved by not getting immunization?
Well, specifically, it doesn't require a government.
No. Because you made the analogy that it's
finish.
No.
You need to let me finish. I'm more than happy to debate with you, but you have to let me finish.
You asked him a question and then cut it.
No, because he's trying to dodge the question, so I'm trying to
not dodging a question.
How would you know if he's trying to dodge it if you won't let him
Because
answer?
he's trying to talk about something else, and I want him to answer the simple question: who is being saved by not getting inoculated?
Because the government doesn't just stop at vaccines. The government stops when it has taken away your rights. Okay, so when I think about the starting point is the vaccines.
Where it's
I'm saying that the starting point is the vaccines. But of course, it does get worse and worse where people consider that it is through that safety standards that we maintain a certain level of safety standards, and that adults themselves or adults who are taking care of their children don't have a right to the child or what they consider to be best for the child.
But it's not best for the child, and it's killing these children off. So why are we letting this happen?
I don't disagree with that at all, that it's not best for the child. The point that I'm trying to make with you is that when you allow the government to enforce one thing, they're going to enforce another.
No, that's a slippery slope fallacy. Immediately, that's a slippery slope fallacy.
I understand that it's called a slippery slope fallacy, but that is the reality. That is historically what happens.
You can't just say because one thing, another thing has happened. That's no. It doesn't work like that.
But it does work like that.
But it does. When it comes to government, that's how it works.
It doesn't work like that.
I don't like
You can't say just because they mandatorily make people get vaccines that all of a sudden we're gonna take away every single.
Let me give you an example. Okay?
No. He's saying thing A causes thing B, and then because thing B happened,
let me give you an example.
B happened, thing C is gonna happen.
Let me give you an example. Okay, you do have several instances in United States history, but you can of course always point to just one of the grand protests that happened way back when, where they referred to the grand statement, life, liberty, and no stamps. And so they were referring to what was happening when the government had enforced a arbitrary rule that there had to be stamps for every single piece of mail. Now, of course, back then, mail was extremely important. It basically ran the entire economy. And so as soon as that they had forced these arbitrary whims that then the colonies would be able to pull away taxes, they considered it to be an actual destruction of people's private rights. And so over time, it took a very long time for it to actually finally go through, because there were people that were actively killed over this law that was created. But over time, they started to accept it. All it took was enough time in order to get people to accept the radical notion of the enforcement of stamps, or to be able to lower the rates of the stamps, to get people to think, well, this is a reasonable law. And then over time, of course, they increase the prices, things get worse and worse, they start to implement different quit rents that make it harder for people to... The point that I'm saying is that it does build up. It builds up, especially with the government, especially with taking away people's rights. I would consider that while I say that taking your child to McDonald's is not as healthy as taking your child to Whole Foods, I don't think it's up to the government to make the decision to you that, they can't go to McDonald's, you have to take them to Whole Foods. That's the same reason why I don't think that it's up to the government to make the decision of giving the child vaccinations.
So what if okay, let's just stay on that analogy of the whole McDonald's thing. What if a parent's bringing their kids to McDonald's every fucking day?
That happens. That happens. Do I
That's
think
all
that they
they
should
eat.
go to jail
It's
for
not
it?
even.
No.
It's not even like that. Hold on. It's not even like
I don't
that.
think
It's
the child should go to
it's
jail
like
for it. I'm sorry. I don't think that the parents should go to jail for
Like,
making
not-
bad decisions
not-
for their child.
I'm not immunizing your children is not like paramount to like bring them to McDonald's.
Sure.
It's like paramount to like child abuse, like literal child abuse. You're killing your child. You're actively killing your child.
Yeah, it's not direct, but yeah.
No. I don't think it's
Giving
like
birth to
actively
your
killing
child, you are ensuring that they will die, so therefore birth should be.
I don't think it is the same as because I
on,
mean, like
that's
many
stupid.
people
I'm joking.
don't get vaccinated, and it doesn't actually hurt them. You know, it
Well,
happens.
what are you
But it
talking
can.
about?
I'm saying it can. I'm not saying it doesn't. But I'm saying that people who don't get vaccinated, there is not 100% chance that they're going to get whatever virus that they aren't immunized to.
But they're
It's
putting
just-
the public at risk, though. Public health is.
Yeah, it's not even. It's not even just
It's
them.
not a
It's-
question of individual liberty. This is threatening everyone, literally.
Okay, so I agree. I agree with you on there that there are people, but here's the problem with vaccines. Vaccines is probably one of the most individualistic things that you can think of, because you're talking about vaccines. You yourself, if you create
It's
an
not though. But it's not an individualistic thing.
how
Like
the heck,
you're literally
how the heck are you? Do you interrupt me through and through? I'm trying to explain.
because you're being ridiculous. Like every single thing you're saying
I
is
don't
just
think what I'm
wrong.
saying is being ridiculous. I don't think what I am saying.
Because you're just wrong. Like you're
But I'm
wrong.
not. I'm not. You
Yes,
haven't
you
said-
are.
Okay,
You're
so
just
you
saying
can say I'm
like,
wrong, but you have to actually prove that I'm wrong.
Okay, saying that vaccines are individualistic is dumb. It's like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard
Well,
in my
can you let
entire
me
life.
finish so you understand what the heck I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Go ahead.
As opposed to just call me dumb? You understand?
Okay,
like I'm
just-
fucking
just go
29
ahead.
years
Just
old,
go
man.
ahead.
Like
Just
Jesus.
Go ahead, dude.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so
Okay, I can call anybody
Go
I
ahead.
want dumb. Who the fuck cares how old you are?
well, I'm saying that. I mean, I've done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of understanding as to what goes on in the
I've
world.
met a lot of
and-
dumb 30-year-olds. It doesn't
and-
matter how old you are. You could be still dumb, no matter
Okay.
how much.
All right. So, do you want to debate or do you want to
How
just
old you
insult
are.
me? Do you want to actually debate or do you want to just insult me?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I was talking about how that it is individualistic because the person themselves can get a vaccine, and then you yourself are immune to that virus. So that if somebody decides, well, I don't want to get the vaccine because I don't believe in vaccines, that person gets harmed. You don't get harmed.
But
That's not true, though. Have you ever heard?
PowerPoint though? Go ahead.
Okay.
Not gonna lie,
Have
your
you ever?
argument's kind of weak.
Have you ever heard of herd? Have you ever heard of herd immunity before?
Have I ever heard of immunity?
No, herd immunity.
Yes. I know exactly what that is.
Okay, so you realize that there are some people who are incapable of getting vaccines because they have some
Yeah,
sort of
due to health
medical,
defects. Yeah. I
yeah,
agree.
some health defects. So these people rely on everybody else being immunized. So this is important because these people that can't get immunized can be hurt when somebody doesn't get immunized. So it's not an individualistic thing. It's a public health risk. And also vaccines wear off. So people that are older are still at risk to these like measles and stuff like that.
Another point too is like the virus can evolve. Like, you know, if there's a bunch of people who are not,
I have seen that Harvard video where they had like it was a bacteria where they had like a some sort of a vaccine in different rows. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like they basically bred a bacteria to resist 10,000 times its normal vaccine levels.
Okay.
So you can see the point that it's not individualistic. It's about public health.
So I think it is individualistic.
How is it-
even with all that evidence?
But individualistic means it's only affecting you.
Because well, for starters, you understand that the population control is not understood under like a petri dish where it's then created with multiple different steps that get the virus to be able to resist 100,000 times of its or 10,000 times of its vaccine. People are immunized and the virus stops right then and there. That's it. It doesn't go further than that. Now, does there exist people who effectively they cannot get the vaccine? Yes, that's true. That exists. I think if you do have a child who is not immunized and the parent does make that decision, that it is up to that parent who made the decision of not immunizing that child to stay away from people like that. That's why That's why you have instances of schools, and you have instances of public areas where you're not allowed.
Point, you realize it's no longer individualistic, right? It's a public health issue. You're no longer talking about an individual. You're talking about the health of a community.
It is an individual. It is still individual.
It's not. Oh my God.
This might be tangential. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I think it is. Like, if you're a farmer and you decide not to immunize your pigs, and they might spread some disease to people and other pigs, and like is that like an individual?
You're saying that a guy who doesn't immunize their pigs then hurts other pigs?
Yeah.
How can it hurt other pigs if other people are immunizing their pigs?
Because it's allowed to take root in the pigs that the person has, and then it can also evolve to affect other pigs, even the ones that are immunized.
So we both know
and then people
you both know that biologically it's not that quick. It takes longer than that for that to happen. Normally, when you have when you have a pig that is not immunized, or an animal that is not immunized, versus an animal that is 100% immunized, or 99 or 98% immunized, the point being is that pig that is not immunized, that's what dies. It doesn't spread to the next person, and then it evolved enough to be able to resist 100% of the vaccine. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, I know you already conceded the point of like schools can require vaccinations or whatever. Like I know you would understand the FDA.
But what's great about that is that it doesn't destroy people's autonomy to have the good thing happen, because I believe in vaccines. Okay, you understand? Like I'm not an anti-vaxxer.
No, I understand.
I believe in vaccines, but I believe in people's autonomy to be above that of requiring vaccines.
And in that, you're causing a public health risk to like millions of Americans.
Yeah, I mean, there's a public health risk in going to McDonald's, but I don't force people to not go to McDonald's.
Yeah, there's not as much of a health risk from going to McDonald's than there is to not having vaccines.
I'm saying it's up to people to make that decision for their child. There are parents that overfeed their children, and I guarantee you the chances of that child dying from like a heart problem is way higher than the vaccine issue. But I don't consider that to be child abuse any more than I consider a child not getting a vaccine. I think it's a bad decision. I agree with that. I don't think it's up to the government to make that decision.
That's an example of an individualistic choice, not vaccines.
Yeah, a delayed degenerative disorder like cardiovascular disease is actually individual. It's your lifestyle choice. You not getting a vaccine jeopardizes public health and could actually implicate millions of other people.
The only people
cause a widespread pandemic.
Okay, so the only people that it actually jeopardizes are other people who decided not to get the vaccine. Other people who are vaccinated.
That's not true.
That's not true at all, actually, because incubation periods within people who don't have the vaccines can actually be conducive to some sort of different strains of the viruses actually involving. And let's say
I already discussed. I know
it's unrelated, but Aaron, you sound just like my uncle.
Here's the thing. I already discussed that. And I understand that these viruses do evolve. I understand that. Now, of course, there have been experiments where they have performed, where they had a gradual stepping of more and more vaccines being, or I'm sorry, not vaccines, more and more immunization to get it to the point where that virus or that bacteria was able to resist 10,000 times its normal vaccine limit. The point that I'm trying to make is that took time. That took a hell of a long time for it to do that. When you're talking about the difference between a person who is not immunized at all to a person who is 98% immunized, which is someone who is vaccinated, that virus has literally no chance of spreading. It's not going to happen. It just doesn't happen.
Do you know what an asymptomatic carrier is? So what you're disregarding here is a person or an organism that is infected with the pathogen, but they may not display any ostensive characteristic of having it. So while they don't get vaccinated and say, yes, I can obviously go along with this and not be vaccinated, you still are putting other people at risk because within that, you're developing different
an asymptomatic carrier. But then again, the only people who actually get hurt are the people who decided not to vaccinate.
No, it's everyone. No, it puts everyone at risk.
Strains
can develop within a generation.
If someone in front of you got a hepatitis A and you have a hepatitis A vaccine, that guy sneezes on you, okay? Are you going to get the virus?
No, it presents no immediate risk, but obviously within 5 to 10 years, this could become a serious public health crisis because you have to realize those vaccines are only appropriated and suited for that particular strain. It is not even 100% effective against that strain. So, like, how would you predict the future here without clairvoyance in this case? Because you would have to know later on the viability of these different diseases. Which
the virus can't survive 10 years.
It does. We have yet to eradicate more than 1 or 2 diseases, to my knowledge. We were only able to fully eradicate. Was it swine flu? No, it's Spanish flu. There's still strains of influenza around, right? I hope you realize this for hundreds of years. Okay. Though we've destroyed certain.
I have a question completely off topic.
No. Can we please keep on topic?
Why is it called Spanish flu?
Okay, no. I want to keep it on topic.
Because I think it actually originated in East Asia, but I think it specifically affected Spanish agriculture to such an extent it started killing off.
Okay, I want to keep on topic.
He can use Google. It's okay.
I want to keep on topic here. So
okay, well,
I'm retarded.
So going back into that idea. Now, of course, you're talking over hundreds of years. All right. Now, I'm not saying that we didn't they are getting eradicated. No, I'm saying that it cannot spread to the next person who has a vaccine. It can't spread. That's not how it works.
But I'm not
if
saying
a person who doesn't have a vaccine sneezes on a person who doesn't have a vaccine, that person it spreads. However,
you're still
if
failing
you yourself
to
have
comprehend how this works. You really, okay. So you
understand that viruses do.
Carrier.
I understand.
Aaron, can you move Sturkstern, please?
I completely understand that viruses do evolve. I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay, but that's not what I was initially contending. That's just one aspect of why it would be a public health crisis.
What's the other aspect then? Now that we've demolished that one,
Black people's.
No, you haven't demolished that. No, you haven't. Wait,
okay, so
Black people really be like PP.
Okay, so then do we want to continue talking about it, or do you want to go to the next topic? So
let's continue talking about it because you seem to be under the impression that you've demolished something when you literally have not disproven how the actual strains of the virus that have developed.
So I understand that the strains of the virus.
And now you're interrupting me. So
I understand.
Go ahead.
I understand that the strains of the virus evolve. I'm saying that if you have a vaccine, you are not going to get a virus, and the chances of actually contracting that virus is very, very low. It's so low to the point it's not even a statistical significance at that point.
No, it depends on the virus. You're making a broad generality here.
It just what it does is it injects pathogens into your body, which your body fights and then makes.
Yes, antibodies. Yes. Clearly, but it depends how effective.
Yes, but it all depends also whether or not it's still evolving, the sickness. Because it can just evolve.
May I know what this derives from?
You still get sick by it.
So I just think that what we have right now, at least with our current system, is we don't destroy people's autonomy, and at the same time,
it's not destroying their autonomy.
Well, I feel that people have a right to risk in their life. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and put everyone at risk. Yes, of course.
No,
right to select risk for others' lives, though.
That puts
I think
I don't think it risks I don't think it risks other people's lives if you yourself have the choice to get a vaccine.
What I'm saying isn't if you're not infected, you get if you're not vaccinated, you get vaccinated people. What I'm saying is choosing for your kids to be vaccinated or not, right? Because now you're selecting someone else's life to be put at risk, right?
Yeah.
Yo, should I be worried? When I was younger, I was diagnosed.
No.
So for the same reason why I think that it is legal that you can take your child to McDonald's every day and it's not considered child abuse.
Not comparable. That's that's an individual life choice that could be
just because things have a risk. You could compare that analogy to walking outside takes your child at risk for lightning strikes. I don't think I think those are non sequiturs. I'll be honest.
No, but there's an
This is
immediate
me.
public health crisis that's generated from not getting vaccinated. So that's why we see the re-emergence.
So that's why
of
you have at least a reasonable point where it doesn't revoke people's autonomy, but they
Okay,
have
what's
the
the
choice
reasonable
to go
point?
to
Yeah,
school.
but so like the reasonable point that you're talking about already exists, and like it's still causing bad outcomes. Like people are still
Well,
getting
there's
sick.
plenty of
People are-
bad outcomes.
There's
You're not going to stop
but-
100% bad
please.
outcomes ever.
Like measles is happening. Like a measles epidemic
Yeah,
in
it's
California is
re-emerging.
happening right now, and you're saying the reasonable position is the one we hold right now.
Yes.
I mean, it's a measles outbreak. Like, how
Can
can
we
you
just,
allow this?
can we just agree that this is far better than the Flat Earth Discord 24/7, in where they talk about now how the vaccines are actually killing you? I think this is a far more reasonable discussion, at least
like I don't.
than the Flat Earth one, where they're talking about how it's probing government microbots in your
I
body.
think it's up to. I think it is up to their own. I genuinely believe that it is up to the autonomy of the parents to make the decision for their child. It is not up to the government. to make
They're
it.
not just making the decision for their child, though. That's the problem.
You're not very connected with the actual reality of the situation here. But I'm just saying, people with weak immune systems are obviously vulnerable
Remember
to this
this,
as well.
okay? We caught them farming hours.
So-
Remember this.
So I'm not saying that a person who's not vaccinated effectively can't harm another person who's not vaccinated. The point that I'm saying is that a person who wants to avoid this problem can get vaccinated and they won't get infected. That's what the vaccine is for.
No, but you're not understanding that vaccines aren't 100% effective, and people with weakened
No, it's
immune
not.
systems
It's like I believe it's like for
Vacillate.
most of them are like 98% roughly.
Yeah, but it vacillates between each strain.
But
and
even
people with their weakened
at
immune
that
systems.
level, even at people who are not vaccinated, because most people do believe in vaccinations. Generally speaking, you're probably not going to get infected. Now that
No,
doesn't
that's
mean that
not
in the
the-
future.
That's still not.
Now that doesn't.
Oh my god!
now that doesn't.
Like, okay, if I had a gun, that said, like, if I had a gun that was gonna shoot you, and like, there's a 98% chance that it won't go off. Are you really gonna fucking take that chance, or are you just gonna throw the gun away?
That's actually perfect. So let's go ahead and let's refer off.
Wait,
of
can
that
I hear
then.
that again? Because I missed
So
that.
so like,
okay,
does
like, say
somebody
you have
have
a gun. Say you have a gun, and I say, hey, you could put this gun up to your head and shoot yourself in the head, but it only has a 98% chance of not killing you. But you could just throw the gun away. Would you pull the trigger and try to kill yourself
Wait,
with that
I'm not
2%?
really- Wait, I don't really understand that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I would do it if it was
the
a higher
analogy
percent.
doesn't work. But okay, I think a better understanding, and I think that I've come across an interesting analogy here. Where
From the
if you
analogy, what would throwing the gun away represent?
Yeah, what does that do?
Like-
There's no 100% anything. Even
Making sure everybody's vaccinated in the world?
yeah, but even that doesn't stop everything.
It's just an analogy.
even if you do
say
force
someone who has
vaccinations, it doesn't mean you're gonna
HIV,
stop
who
everybody
can't get
from
him.
getting
Okay,
There's
if
no
you have
100%.
HIV and you can't get vaccinated, and someone who chose not to get vaccinated, or someone who chose their kid not to get vaccinated, gets a disease, they can spread it to the person who has HIV.
What?
Why don't
HIV?
I feel like we could come up with an
Yeah, I believe
analogy
because like
with-
people who are on like chemo or something can't have vaccinations. I believe due to their immunodeficiency. I believe that's correct, right? Like that's what I've heard.
Yeah, they
And
can't
that's one of
handle
the that's one of the most
Well, let's
common
go with
debates with pro force vaccination. That the fact that you basically destroy other people's autonomy due to the you
No,
not
but we
getting a
can-
vaccine.
we
Like
can
I
even
get
talk
it.
about the
I-
family. We can even.
What do
we
you
can talk
mean?
about
I
the
mean,
family
obviously,
dynamics too,
pro-vax,
though.
like if pro-vaccines for all doesn't mean the people that can't get it have to get it. If you can't get it, you won't get it.
Yeah,
well,
that's
not
implicit.
necessarily.
Well, what about,
You just
like-
have to know that somebody
Well, let's-
can't.
I
let's
just,
say there's
I
a
just think
fuck
it's up
Well,
to the person to make that
HIV,
decision.
chemo, those things brought up. But if you know,
Well, okay. Let me take. I like that gun. I like that gun analogy, but I'm going to modify a little bit. I'm gonna modify it a little bit. So you.
Yeah,
so
I was
like,
gonna do that actually.
So like when you
And I
have the. So let's say you own a gun, right? And it's like you have a right to own that gun. I mean, most people don't disagree that you have a right to own that gun. So somebody comes in to rob your house, right? And so you decide that you're going to shoot that person who. Can I finish?
This is an analogous.
I'm starting to lose what you're saying, you know. But keep going.
So if you're shooting, if you shoot that person who robbed your house, however, because you shot that person, there is a 2% chance that you're going to shoot your neighbor because the gunshot could possibly go through the wall and hit one of your neighbors. And we found out scientifically that there's a 2% chance that it's going to kill another person. So can we not say that by right we should remove the usage of guns?
No, this is not analogous at all. The math is all wrong in this one.
Like controlled environment hypothetical. I mean, of course, I don't think you're talking like realistically.
Okay,
because
here's an analogy. Like, you live in an apartment complex, you have an AC unit that, like, has a certain % chance of putting out carbon monoxide or some shit. Should you be allowed to have that fucking AC unit if you have fucking kids? Should you be allowed to have it if you could potentially kill your neighbors with it? Probably not.
This is again not analogous.
How is it analogous? I don't know. It's pretty analogous.
Okay, but Amender's position still is allowing for you're complacent in the death of infants, clearly, because you understand that they can't be vaccinated, and if you have unvaccinated people around them,
if you asked me, should the government be able to force things, and it's like that sounds very, but on this specific issue, I feel like I just completely have to go with the pro-vaxxers here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, okay, understand. I'm not anti-vax. That's not who I am.
I understand.
No, I know. I'm just pro-vax for lack of a better.
To say my point is anti-vax, I think is disingenuous to what I'm saying.
By that I mean pro-vax and pro-choice. Not anti-vax, of course.
No, we're not calling you anti-vax, but your position is complacent for infants to basically.
For real though, when I was a kid,
I think taking your child to McDonald's is complacent in harming your child. But I think that it's not. I'm saying it's not up to the government to make that decision. It's up to the parents to make that decision.
Okay, but that's McDonald's. I don't think that's your whole lifestyle. That's like a delayed degenerative disorder that you can develop later in your life. This is an immediate concern where unvaccinated infants, because they can't be vaccinated, are put in harm's way because of unvaccinated individuals who can, obviously.
Yeah. So let's say McDonald's could kill your kid.
I can easily concede to the point that if somebody cannot be vaccinated, like a chemo patient or something. Obviously, a person who chooses to be anti-vax and that they don't vaccinate their children, they are endangering the life of another individual. And it's under that point that you can basically ask that person that they have to leave. But I don't think that that is an argument to force vaccinations no matter what.
I don't think we're going to make any ground on this one.
I'm sorry. I mean, I guess I just.
Yo.
You're gonna say you demolished our points again?
No, not really. I mean, I'm just saying that I don't believe that the government has a right to enforce certain safety standards when it could be completely entirely up to the community, or it can be entirely dictated by maintaining people's autonomy. I think that when you give the government power
when measles spread for the second time, I'm gonna blame you, sweetheart.
Okay,
infants can die as long as everyone's personal choice is in the matter. You're basically prioritizing.
I would be more concerned with forced vaccinations myself.
You're so hyper focused on people's rights that you're ignoring the bigger picture of public safety.
Because it's understood that when you maintain people's rights, when you allow people to make their own decisions on their own lives, then that, of course, it ends up creating a more successful society. That's just what happens.
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
That's 100% true.
Okay,
I don't know if that's necessarily true at all.
Here's my problem with that, right? So, when you're putting rights above lives, I spend quite a bit of time on the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord. Those are some crazy motherfuckers there.
Listen,
all of them are anti-vax.
I believe in vaccinations. I believe in vaccinations.
They probably have a fucking higher count than Stalin by the end of the fucking century.
We get it.
Your system,
we get it. Can I bring up a nuclear take real quick?
Black babies?
No, I think that kids should not only be allowed to drink with the parents' consent. I think they should be allowed to drunk drive. They should be given driver's licenses. They should be allowed to fucking drunk drive. What do you guys think?
Gee, brother, you had me at drunk driving.
That's a
pretty good idea, right?
You just posted cringe, my dude.
Just kidding.
Nah, dude. Come on, what's wrong with that? I mean, I guess
I get it. It's just a more extreme version of first.
I was looking something up. Can you repeat that?
So kids should be allowed to drink. They should be allowed to drive, and they should.
Oh
be
yeah,
allowed to
absolutely. They better learn how to drunk drive, because if they don't, they're gonna be really bad drunk drivers.
The reason, okay, so interestingly enough, the reason why I would say that a child cannot go and ask for a vaccine themselves is the same reason why they can't do what you're saying, is because a child cannot consent. There is no instance of a child being able to consent.
Though. The parents let them drive, they let them drink, and they let them.
Well, of course, you are effectively revoking their own lives. You're putting their lives in danger.
What?
Yeah.
So not vaccinating your kids doesn't do the same thing.
I agree that it in some instance it does, but then at the same time, I think at what point do you basically put that line in the sand and you say that should not be enforced by the government?
It's a slippery slope. It shouldn't be enforced by the government.
I think everything has to be distributed individually. So it's saying the government should have control absolutely over you have to do this is a very slippery slope. But individually, in this case, I think it's absolutely necessary that everyone gets vaccinated.
That's why I think it's a slippery slope at all.
That's why I brought up that analogy, because it's like.
Listen.
The chances of your child being hurt. Let's say if you wanted to use your child to stand in front of a car so you can run him over to see how much it hurts. Let's say that was the decision of the parent. Of course, absolutely, the chances of that child getting seriously injured, you're revoking the rights to the body of the child.
Yeah,
so
it's not like 30%, it's like 50%.
You can say that, not only the community, but the government would have a say in that. Okay? But I don't think that vaccines are at that level. They're just not.
I don't, level. Oh my god, there's so much cognitive dissonance going on in this fucking... I'm done, dude. I can't do it.
It's okay.
Yeah, spell innocent backwards, pussy.
Like I said, I don't think we're gonna make any round of
Fuck you, bitch.
Okay.
Spell special K backwards.
Hey,
bitch.
you said my analogy was cringe, but it was pretty perfect.
Fuck.
Yeah, I mean.
Go. Okay. All right. I need somebody to explain this to me. What the fuck is up with the cock and ball torture meme? What the fuck is wrong with you people?
Wait, where's that at?
Everyone loves a good cock and ball torture, my dog.
I don't understand.
Why is Joshua talking in Russian?
Alright, well, I guess I'll just end the debate right there then. I'll probably just stop the broadcast. But you guys have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
What?